Hi, I'm Chris with Empowered Vote, and I'd like to show you how to create solutions that last forever. It's a framework that anyone can leverage called value-driven designs. And these are different than objective-driven designs, which focus on achieving a specific outcome. Value-driven designs focus on an ideal, continuously iterating with that ideal as the guide. And when it comes to finding solutions that endure the test of time, not all values were created equal. And some values, like beauty, may seem like they last forever, but what is beautiful to one generation will look very different to the next and to the one after that. It doesn't make for a consistent target. Other value-driven frameworks, like might makes right, are built upon a foundation of dominating others. And while in the short term, this dominance may seem more secure, over the course of generations, relying on coercion in place of cooperation makes the solution increasingly unstable. But there's a subset of value-driven designs that naturally balance competing interests in a way that leads to a shared equilibrium. These are called regenerative designs, and I want to show you how they work. I have three examples of regenerative designs that will help me explain how they're built, the reason for their unique longevity, and what we can accomplish when we thread these frameworks throughout our solutions. My first example is also the first regenerative design I remember encountering: my mom's cake trick. See, when I was growing up, my little sister and I would often want the same thing, like the last piece of cake. And what my dad would do is he'd come in with a very clear objective. He'd split that piece right down the middle, equally, and give us both half. But it never failed. One of us always felt slighted. Either my piece was too big, or hers had more frosting, or mine had the best tasting flavor of frosting. It drove my dad crazy. Even though both slices were mostly the same, both of us would fight over that difference in crumbs. That's just the way kids are, I guess. My mom, though, she knew how to bring our values into play. She'd walk in, and since I was a couple years older than my sister, she'd hand me the knife, and she'd let me cut that last piece in half wherever I wanted. But then after I was done cutting, she'd let my little sister choose her piece first. And that was it. Once we understood how the setup worked, my mom didn't even have to come downstairs to solve our problem. Her cake trick had divided the authority between us. One of us cut, the other chose. And when both of us shared that authority, we naturally gravitated towards solutions that we both shared. Because my best play wasn't just to cut that last piece in half evenly, but rather listen to my sister. For instance, if I figured out that she really liked chocolate frosting, I could probably offer her a piece with most of the chocolate on it that was also a little bit smaller, and both of us would leave happier. Where my dad had failed by trying to solve our problem, my mom succeeded by solving our process. As I grew older, I continued to marvel at the flexibility of my mom's cake trick. And for one, I found that it worked on a lot of things that weren't cake: big problems, trivial problems. It scaled elegantly. You didn't have to be related to the other person either. It worked with complete strangers. But to me, what was most fascinating was how durable the solutions were. When both sides believe they made the right decision before and after they make it, then the solutions that come from that setup last for a long time. They're able to remain in place without relying on deceit or coercion or manipulation, each of which may seem as sturdy as steel during our lifetime, but become brittle over the course of generations in a way that sincerely held values do not. So that's my first regenerative framework, my mom's cake trick. It's been about 40 years since I first learned it, and while that amounts to a lifetime for me, 40 years isn't the same thing as forever. I wasn't able to spot the longevity of regenerative designs by looking at my life. I saw it by looking back. I looked throughout history for solutions that had kept working, that kept the needle of their compass pointing in the same direction for hundreds or even thousands of years. My second example of a regenerative design comes from about 25 centuries back. The people of Athens had grown accustomed to warlords and tyrants fighting each other constantly over crumbs. Because the political power of their time was concentrated among so few, there wasn't a need for leaders to listen to the concerns of those without power. Until democracy. A generation came that foundationally solved this problem of tyrants by changing their process. And it was like someone had gone back and told them about my mom's cake trick. And the Athenians had crafted a framework that forced their leaders to be beholden to the ones they led. Legislators would write the laws, and then citizens would vote on what solutions they liked. This division of power meant that the ideal course of action for legislators was to develop solutions that catered to the concerns of citizens. When that check on the legislator's power existed, then the solutions they proposed would naturally trend towards equality. The Romans expanded on this model, creating a republic where elected officials held power, but crucially, that power was checked by the will of the people. By separating power throughout their government, instead of letting it consolidate within one person or branch, the Romans created systems of checks and balances that would protect them from tyranny. And these safeguards worked. The warlords who had come before had believed that might makes right, but their might would only last for a generation or two. And when those mighty eventually died, it created a power vacuum that led to a cycle of endless wars. But because the Romans had created their safeguards using regenerative designs, the protections they made endured, preserving their republic for almost 5 centuries. And it was only after these systems of checks and balances were removed that the Roman Republic collapsed. My third example is one of the oldest regenerative designs ever recorded, appearing first in ancient Egypt 40 centuries ago. It's a simple but profound idea, treating others the way you wish to be treated. Where I grew up, we called it the Golden Rule. This specific value-driven framework has emerged independently all over the world in civilizations throughout history. It describes the origins of empathy and is considered a central tenet of Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and many other religions. But again, what's most fascinating to me about the answers that stem from the Golden Rule are how durable they are. In any language, in any culture, in any age, it doesn't matter if it was 40,000 years ago, or 20,000 or 200 years ago, or 20 minutes ago. When you treat someone the way you'd want to be treated, it always points us in the same direction. It solves the problem in a similar way. It's a regenerative framework that always leads us to an equilibrium. Now, all 3 of these examples, my mom's cake trick, democracy, and the Golden Rule, they're each unique frameworks, but they all share a unifying trait. They each require that you find an answer that you think would be shared, where the person with power remains beholden to the person without. So that's how you create solutions that will last forever. You build your answers upon a foundation of regenerative designs. That's what world peace will look like when it's designed to last forever. In our next video, I'll make my case for the regenerative framework at the core of Empowered Vote. If there's anyone in your circle of friends that you believe are looking for shared solutions, please consider sharing this with them. Or if you're in a spot where you can support our work, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, so your donations will never go to line the pockets of shareholders. Thanks.